is the dimension of imagination. It is an area which we call the Twilight Zone.
Welcome to the Daily Allegory through Astrological Divination. Our magic motto today is, "They tried to brew me into poison. My mind rewrote the recipe." In today's story, a secret environmental protection agency adjacent research unit runs an experiment in chemistry alchemy, meant to study how compound mixtures interact with the human body's baseline chemistry, temperature, stress hormones, skin oils, and diet, until a rogue lead chemist begins slipping microdoses of multiple compounds into everyday civilian products, hygiene items, food additives, self-care goods, letting the mixture assemble inside unsuspecting participants into new, unstable toxins the team can observe and catalog as illegal data, or case studies for lack of a better term. Most subjects follow predictable degradation patterns, but one participant in particular becomes an anomaly. No matter what they seed into this individual's environment, his body produces wildly different end compounds, as if the experiment can't finish him. Like everyday attempted shutdowns end with him waking up again, no matter what. He starts noticing the pattern, connects the dots, and realizes that his brain carries a very unique, specific, rare wave signature that seems to bend probability through shaping outcomes. So he turns the program's own surveillance against it, collapsing the operation from the inside, and broadcasts a final warning: reimburse the harm and end the game. Or he'll stop waiting for institutions to do the right thing and use his reality-altering gift to settle every problem on his own terms. Today's video is called the Pisces Protocol. The file was labeled like every other file in the basement of the agency's annex. Sterile font, bland code, nothing that catch the eye. PIS-6/AR-3. The kind of tag that let people sleep at night because it sounded like paperwork. Not predation. Up in the public offices, the Environmental Protection Agency held press conferences about clean rivers, safe soils. But down here, in rooms that smelled faintly of bleach and warm electronics, they practiced a quieter craft. Internal alchemy. Chemistry designed to behave differently inside each individual human body, changing shape with temperature, cortisol, humidity, and individual stress levels. It was sold as prevention, predictive toxicology, the director called it, speaking with the smooth confidence of somebody who turned morality into a budget line. The idea was simple, elegant, and on paper, beautiful. Tiny exposures, individually insignificant, that would accumulate and react inside the body's natural state, the body's status quo, forming new compounds that no lab could easily detect because the lab never received the ingredients in the same order, or on the same days, or in the same pattern. It was randomized through AI algorithms. The experiment wasn't performed in beakers. It was performed in live specimens, human beings. They called their participants unselected civilians, a softer term than target. The key chemist wasn't technically on payroll. She was a plant, placed, protected, and deniable. In meetings, she smiled like a consultant, but in corridors, she moved like a priestess. Hands clean, eyes dry. She ran illegal case studies the way other people ran spreadsheets, and she was obsessed with one premise and one premise alone. If you can embed trace compounds across the ordinary, soap, lotion, supplements, food enhancers, self-care kits, then a city itself could basically become a pseudo-laboratory without ever looking like one. Her favorite phrase was almost romantic. The body finishes the recipe. And for a while, she was right. Most participants followed curves the system always understood. Nausea that arrived like weather, insomnia that spread like mold, moods that shifted with absolutely no warning. The system learned a telltale signature of distress, called it data. The director framed a project in the language of health and service. Venus trine Jupiter in the 6th, he joked once. because it sounded like luck in the house of work and the house of wellness. Big benefits delivered through daily routines. The staff laughed politely, even the ones who didn't believe in astrology, because superstition felt less ugly than the truth. Above all of it hung the Pisces configuration that the project was named for. The North Node, Sun, Venus, Mercury, clustered, all under Pisces. Fog and charisma and narrative. The perfect sky for a lie that wanted to feel like kindness. Mercury and Pisces made the words flow. Venus and Pisces made people want to believe. And the Sun and Pisces made the institution's conscious dreamy and distant. Like a lighthouse shining over water it would never actually touch. But beneath the fog, a second sky blurred. Neptune, Saturn, Chiron, all in Aries. Illusion meeting discipline, meeting pain. Aries didn't soothe. Aries escalated. Aries made consequence physical. That Aries edge was why the project had rules. Pages and pages of rules. Layers of approvals, limits, and of course safeguards. And that was why the plant mattered. Because she did not follow the rules. She tested them. She wasn't reckless for sport. She was reckless because she believed she was discovering a new form of control. Chemistry that didn't just poison or heal, steered almost. Nudged cognition, warped perception, amplified fear. It was like creating life under the pretenses of augmented reality. If a person's reality could be destabilized, the truth became negotiable. And if the truth became negotiable, power became permanent. Then the system flagged a participant that refused to behave. It started as an anomaly report on a monitor in a quiet office, a heat map with the wrong colors, a trend line that inherently made no sense. The director leaned in, irritated, until his irritation shifted into kind of like a fascination. The subject's profile didn't match the known outcomes. It didn't even match the superior responders either. This was an absolute anomaly, one of one. The internal chemistry did not assemble the way that it should have. The end products were wildly different, sometimes inert, sometimes altered, and every time impossible. The plant asked for more exposure, more variables, more data points. The director hesitated. The Aries part of him, Saturn warned restraint, but Neptune whispered to seduction and discovery. And good old Chiron, the old moon that wanted to prove something to the world, pushed him forward regardless. So they escalated, and the subject stayed alive. That's what disturbed him the most. Not only that he survived, but that he returned to baseline faster than all known case studies previously proven. Faster than physics should allowed. His blood work normalized like it had been rewritten. His stress hormones spiked and then fell as if the individual commanded his internal alchemy at will. Every time they pushed the experiment towards an endpoint, every time they tried to create a reaction that would end his participation permanently, he woke up again. The next morning, with the stubborn calm of somebody who almost seen the trick before. In the windowless room where an analyst watched his life unfold through screens, the plant began to speak about him the way people speak about myths. He's not resisting, she said. He's editing. The staff shifted in their chairs. Somebody laughed nervously. The director watched the subject's daily patterns. Wake, work, eat, sleep. Very regular. Each habit a ritual in the sixth house of routine where Venus and Jupiter smiled like conspirators. But behind the routines was a pulse that algorithms really couldn't parse. A brainwave signature that repeated like a code word across every sensor reading. A frequency that didn't just respond to stimuli, but preceded it. Like the mind was arriving at the outcome before the world finished asking the question even. The project had always depended on the participants not really noticing anything. And for the most part, they didn't. 99 did. He was the 1% that didn't. On the fog holding, but Mercury in Pisces cuts both ways. And that's what they didn't understand. Mercury in Pisces is intuition. It's the quiet, irrational certainty that something is wrong, even when you can't really prove it. And the subject nameless in the files, reduced to an ID string, began to notice everything. At first, it was kind of the taste of things. He began tasting things that shouldn't exist in the food. He had a rather developed palate that they were unaware of. A faint metallic sweetness in the food that used to be bland. A skin irritation that flared only on days that felt watched. A head cold that arrived whenever he argued with somebody. Patterns that didn't belong in nature, which was his focal point. He started journaling. Dates, moods, temperatures, the brand of soap in the shower, the protein powder he'd bought on sale, the lotion sample he'd be given for free at the public event. He didn't know about the annex. He didn't know about the plant, but he recognized the ritual when he saw one. He cleaned his cupboards, switched brands, stopped accepting freebies. He installed air filters, ran his own primitive experiments, harmless ones, just to test whether the world changed when he changed it. And the results were consistent enough to terrify him. Whenever he altered a variable, the pressure shifted elsewhere. As if something unseen was trying to complete a formula inside of him, but kept failing. He wasn't supposed to be able to see the pattern, but he did. The plant responded the way that all obsessed researchers respond when their experiment starts looking back. She leaned in closer. She demanded higher access. She petitioned the director for permission to confirm the mechanism. Her eyes shone with the zeal of a person who believed they're rewriting nature itself. What a god complex that would be. The director approved it because the Aries stellium in him was now fully awake. Saturn's iron discipline, Neptune's intoxication, Chiron's need to make the wound meaningful. He convinced himself it was justified. He convinced himself that it was necessary. Under the Pisces stellium fog, justification was easy. That was when the experiment went wrong in a way that nobody had modeled. The subject's mind began to push back. Not with anger, not with violence, with focus. On a morning that looked like every other, he woke up and sat at the kitchen table, hands flat on the wood. Outside, traffic was moving. A dog barked. The world performed in normal script. Inside, he closed his eyes and listened. Not to the sound, but to the feeling beneath it. The pressure between moments is how he intercepted these patterns. His brainwave signature tightened on the analyst's screens in the annex. Sensor readouts stuttered, pattern recognition dashboards flickered, data streams that had always been clean began to drift, as if the signal had been bent sideways. The plant stared, almost stunned. What is he doing? Someone whispered, and nobody answered because the answer itself felt insane. He was shaping probability. Not telekinesis as movies imagined it, not flying furniture, not dramatic levitation, something subtler and far more frightening. Statistical gravity is what they called it. He didn't shove the world, he leaned on it until outcomes preferred him. The director ordered containment protocols. He ordered more sampling, more data, more controls. The annex basically became a hive. Aries' energy roared, act, act, act. Saturn demanded structure, Neptune demanded more, Chiron demanded proof that was all well worth it. But the subject was done being a silent participant. The first thing he collapsed was their supply chain. In the city, shipments went missing, lab requisitions returned marked invalid. The plant's access badges stopped working at doors that they always opened. A vendor called to confirm an order and couldn't reach anybody. The project's quiet machinery began to cease like an engine without oil. Then, in the annex, the internal file server locked itself behind permissions nobody even remembered setting. A cascade of routine audits triggered automatically. Compliance checks, integrity verifications, timestamp logs preserved in read-only formats. The plant tried to wipe traces and found her commands denied. The director tried to escalate privileges and discovered his own credentials had been quarantined. It was like somebody overrode him with system administrative properties. That would be cool. Something, had turned the system against itself. The director finally understood the real danger here now. The subject wasn't merely surviving. He was counter-researching them. He had found the thread of the project and was pulling until the weave unraveled. In desperation, the director ordered a direct intervention, like immediately. An attempt to force the subject into a controlled environment where variables could be isolated. The plant smiled thinly, as if this was the moment that she had been waiting for. But the moment they moved, the world resisted. A tire blew on a vehicle sent to pick him up. A person they sent to monitor him ended up getting picked up and intercepted by police nearly feet away from the compound. An unraveled traffic accident blocked the route. A fire alarm emptied the annex at the exact wrong time. Small coincidences stacked into an impossible wall, each one plausible itself. Altogether, unmistakable. Venus and Pisces, the plant of attraction, had always been their ally, making civilians accept what was offered. Now it turned, trying Jupiter in the 6th and made the subject's everyday routines into a shield. His ordinary life suddenly protected him like a blessing. When the director returned to his office, pale and sweating, a message waited in his inbox. No sender, no routing trail, no signature, just a single line of text, followed by a file attachment labeled Reimbursement. He opened it. It was a ledger. Not theirs, his. The subjects, dates, products, symptoms, time of day correlations, environmental triggers, a careful mapping of what they had tried to do to him, presented with the calm precision of somebody who had already won and was now deciding how gentle to be in return. And at the end of the file, one paragraph stood alone, written like a warning delivered without theatrics. I know what you're doing. I know who you're using. I know what you've built. I will accept reimbursement at the end of your program as the cleanest outcome for everybody involved. If you choose to continue, I will handle the consequences myself. I do not need your permission to be safe, thrive, or live at all. The plant laughed when she read it. High brittle. He's bluffing, she said. Check your surroundings and your circumstances. Unlikely. But even she didn't sound convinced, because the project's signature, the Pisces fog that made everything feel deniable, was now lifting. Under the airy stellium's fire, hidden things burned into visibility. Saturn demanded consequence, and Neptune's illusions collapsed. Chiron's wounds now reopened. And the blood, well, blood has a way of making people honest. Investigators arrived not with guns, but with subpoenas this time. Auditors arrived with questions that couldn't really be answered with charm. The annex staff began deleting messages and found that their deletions were being logged. They were being duplicated before being deleted. The director tried to call in favors and discovered the favors had limits. And the plant, the deniable consultant, found herself suddenly named in files that she didn't even remember existing. By the time the subject appeared again, just a man walking through an ordinary day, the project was already collapsing behind him. The EPA's public face would later call it an unauthorized research initiative. They would blame contractors and pretend the rot was an exception. But the truth had already been published in the only place that mattered, inside the sealed evidence packages now moving towards court. What a case that'll be. In the final scene, the director sat alone in the annex, listening to the building's ventilation hum like a confession, and on the desk lay a copy of the subject's ledger. Pages covered in quiet arithmetic, proof that the body has indeed finished the recipe, just not the way that they wanted. The director looked at the last line again and felt the full terror of it. Not the threat, but the absolute inevitability and certainty of it all. The subject didn't need to hunt them. He only needed to decide. And in a world built on chemistry and control, he was the one variable they could never contain. Because his mind didn't just survive the experiment. It rewrote the whole damn thing without permission. That's all I have for you guys today. Hopefully you found this one entertaining. I know I sure did.